This dream is called The Tree and the Hill. I had this dream in the past week, and I was trying to get around to recording it without coughing because of a little bit of a cold or whatever. And also the audio may be off because my headphones broke. So I'm trying to record this just using straight up iPhone audio. Anyways, so the dream started out, there's a hill. And at the top of this hill, it's just an almost picturesque hill. Grass growing and this and that, just a nice rolling mound up to the top. It was actually quite a big hill. And at the top of the hill was a large oak tree. You could tell it was old. It had been there for a long time. Very large, very picturesque oak tree that was growing at the very top of the hill, center of the hill. And the sun was setting behind the oak tree from my viewpoint. And I was watching, I was in a third person viewpoint, and I saw this animal come from, so to speak, from the left, come moseying up towards the hill. And the animal looked like an anteater of some sort. And it started just like eating the grass and munching along in like a line going around the base of the hill. And then out of nowhere, this anteater type animal morphed into a giant cockroach. Literally a giant cockroach. It was like the size of a dog. And the cockroach started eating along the path that the anteater had started eating. And it was eating all the grass. It was eating into the dirt. It was doing this path pretty much going around the base of the hill. And then all of a sudden, the cockroach had babies. And it wasn't just like having babies. It like had babies, and the babies were full size all of a sudden. And they were also started digging and eating. There was like 3 or 4 babies. And so they're all eating. They're going back and forth, eating all the grass and starting to consume the dirt that's at the base of the hill, working their way up towards the top of the hill. And then at one point, they started pulling up garbage and trash for some reason that I guess was buried in the dirt at the base of the hill and in the hill. And they started just eating it. And the more they ate, the more they consumed, the more they duplicated. And this was all happening in like minutes. Like they were pregnant and just duplicated and having the babies, and they were all just consuming and digging and pulling everything up out of that was buried in that hill. And then they got to the tree roots. And when they started pulling up what looked to be like body parts, but they were supposed to be tree roots. And then they started pulling up the rest of the dead bodies. And they were intertwined. They were like tied in with the roots of the tree. Like the bodies were part of the tree. And when they would bite through the roots, the cockroaches were large enough and everything else, and they bit through the roots of the tree and just snapping them off. And when they did that, blood was gushing out of the tree, like the roots of the tree. And it was odd. And then as they kept on duplicating and digging more and more, they started pulling up more and more whole bodies together. They were working as a team to pull out bodies. And the thing was, you would imagine the bodies were dead, but it seemed like as they were like munching and biting the bodies, there was fresh blood just pouring out. It was almost as if the bodies were in some sort of comatose state, and they were being used for their blood or for something else, and they were all tied into this tree. And as this was happening, the tree started to die. The leaves started to turn gray. It wasn't just like they turned brown, like it was wintertime, or turned a different color. No, they started to turn gray, and just like they didn't fall. A few fell, but most of them were just like the tree was dying quickly. And it was peculiar because with the way the tree was, and they were pulling up all these bodies, and the fact that there was grass, it was all picturesque, but underneath the grass and the surface of the dirt, there was all this trash. And then underneath the trash was these bodies that were somehow alive, tied into the roots of the tree. And the tree was living off of these bodies. And it was an oak tree. I know my trees. This was an oak tree. It was a classic, what you would picture an oak tree to be. Very large, very robust, and everything else. Well, then, as this was happening on the near side of the tree, I seemed to be transported third person around to see the other side of the hill, because all these cockroaches and things were only on one side of the hill. And as I'm taken around to the other side of the hill, all of a sudden I see that the hill is cut away. There is no other side to the hill. And instead there is a large cavern of some sort that had been concreted over. And you could see where the grass stops. The tree was at the top. It goes down a few feet, and then it just stops. And then there's a clear straight cut going straight down, and the whole area was concreted. And good. Don't know what was in there. There was no markings on the concrete. It was all super smooth and flush and everything else. And then I got swung around to the back to the other side and saw the cockroaches just still going at it, still pulling bodies out, still pulling other stuff. And then the dream ended. Like, that was it. It was like as if in real life it would have all been like 15 minutes. But the dream was like hours long, and like all this detail about stuff. It was quite peculiar. I'm not sure what to make of it. I don't know what it means. Just felt like I was supposed to lead to share this. Thanks.